Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to be here today to talk about ensuring reliable Power Apps deployments with DevOps and ALM. On this first slide, you'll see our main title, Ensuring Reliable Power Apps Deployments with DevOps and ALM. We'll also explore how to overcome risks, reduce downtime, and build sustainable application lifecycle management practices. Over the course of this presentation, we'll cover key strategies and best practices to help you deliver more stable and efficient Power App solutions. Let's get started. Let's talk about the hidden costs of skipping DevOps in Power Apps. When we overlook these practices, critical failures can happen that require expensive and time-consuming firefighting efforts. These situations often catch us off guard and can be very costly to resolve. This highlights just how much we might be underestimating the true expense of neglecting DevOps. Now, without a solid DevOps approach, trust in our solutions can start to erode. Stakeholders may begin questioning the reliability of Power Apps deployments, which is never a good sign for any project or organization. Additionally, when we skip structured deployment practices, it impacts productivity. Teams spend more time troubleshooting and fixing issues rather than focusing on new development or innovation, which ultimately affects overall business performance. Finally, the biggest risk is unpredictable outages. Without proper deployment processes, disruptions become more frequent and harder to control, leading to workflow interruptions and operational inefficiencies. So, integrating DevOps and ALM isn't just about best practices. It's about safeguarding our investments, our trust, and our ability to operate smoothly. Let's talk about why Power Apps sometimes fail once they're in production. One of the main issues is the lack of environment separation. When we don't have clear boundaries between development, testing, and production environments, untested updates can accidentally affect live data, which can be quite disruptive. Another common problem is manual deployments. Doing things by hand can lead to missed dependencies or configuration mismatches, which are easy to overlook but can cause big issues later on. Then there's the problem of last-minute changes. When updates are pushed directly to production without proper validation, it increases the risk of errors slipping through. And finally, even if Power Apps perform well during testing, they can still fail in production. This usually comes down to poor deployment practices, things like skipping validation, rushing changes, or not following a structured deployment process. All of these points highlight the importance of implementing solid DevOps and ALM practices to ensure reliable deployments and prevent these common pitfalls. Let's talk about the so-called myth of the publish button. Many users assume that clicking publish is all it takes to deploy their Power Apps successfully. But the truth is, relying solely on this button can be risky. When you use publish, it can silently overwrite critical components or settings without giving you any warning. This means you might inadvertently cause outages or data issues in your production environment without even realizing it. Another problem is the lack of visibility. The publish button doesn't show you what exactly has changed or who made those changes. This can make troubleshooting much more complicated and also affects accountability. Without knowing what was altered, finding the root cause of an issue becomes a guessing game. Additionally, there's no built-in rollback or version control with just clicking publish. If something goes wrong, recovering previous versions isn't straightforward. This can leave you stuck trying to fix errors without a safety net. All of this leads to what I call the illusion of simplicity. The publish button looks like a quick, easy solution, but in reality, it can create serious risks. That's why adopting proper DevOps and ALM practices is essential. They help ensure your deployments are reliable, transparent, and safe. Let's walk through a real-world example that really highlights the importance of reliable deployment practices. This is about a finance team outage that had significant consequences. The issue began when a custom Power App used by the finance team suddenly stopped working after a last-minute formula update on a Friday afternoon. Now, this might seem like a small change, but it ended up causing a lot of problems. Because the deployment was manual and untracked, it led to some serious fallout. First, there was lost time. Employees couldn't do their work, and productivity took a hit. More importantly, trust in the system was damaged, since users relied heavily on that app for their daily tasks. This outage also exposed some critical vulnerabilities. The IT teams scrambled to identify what went wrong because they didn't have clear logs or a way to quickly roll back the update. They struggled to pinpoint the cause, which only prolonged the downtime. On top of that, the impact was immediate and widespread. Expense approvals stopped working, and support teams were flooded with screenshots and complaints from frustrated users. This example underscores why implementing DevOps and Application Lifecycle Management, ALM, is so crucial. They help ensure deployments are reliable, trackable, and less prone to these kinds of disruptions. In this case, a more controlled process could have prevented this outage or at least minimized its impact. Manual deployments might seem straightforward at first, but they often give us a false sense of control. When teams are juggling multiple environments, they sometimes resort to copying files or settings by hand. While that might seem simple, it actually increases the chance of mistakes and can lead to costly downtime. One of the biggest issues is that errors made during manual deployments often go unnoticed until they appear in production. At that point, fixing them can be much more complicated and disruptive. It's like fixing a problem after it's already affected users. There's also a risk of overwriting working components without any warning. Imagine deploying something and unintentionally replacing a functioning part. This can cause unexpected disruptions that are hard to troubleshoot. Another challenge is missing important settings or dependencies during handoffs. If those aren't captured correctly, the deployment can fail, leading to delays and frustration. All of these points highlight that manual deployment practices, while appearing to give us control, actually introduce significant risks. It's essential to recognize that relying solely on manual processes can be dangerous, and that's why adopting DevOps and ALM practices can help us deploy more reliably and confidently. Let's talk about the true cost of inefficient Power Apps deployments. First, we encounter accumulating technical debt. As we rush to get features out, we often take shortcuts, and over time, this debt builds up. It slows down future development and makes our systems more fragile and harder to maintain. Next, there's the erosion of user confidence. When apps become unreliable or slow, users start losing trust. Sometimes, they create shadow IT workarounds to meet their needs, which can introduce security risks and further complicate management. This all leads to undermined app value. Instead of focusing on delivering real business benefits, teams spend too much time firefighting and fixing issues, which diminishes what the app was originally meant to achieve. Then we have incident investigation and patching. Hours get lost here, hours that could be better spent on innovation or strategic projects. This reactive approach consumes valuable resources and distracts from proactive improvements. All of these issues create a vicious cycle, a cycle of firefighting. The more we react to problems, the more resources we drain, and the more our ability to focus on strategic work diminishes. So, understanding these costs highlights why reliable deployment processes, like DevOps and ALM, are crucial. They help us break this cycle and ensure we're delivering consistent, high-quality solutions. So, what is Application Lifecycle Management, or ALM, and why is it so important? Well, ALM is essentially a structured approach to managing the entire lifecycle of your Power Apps, from development to deployment and beyond. It helps ensure that your apps are stable, reliable, and scalable as they grow into critical parts of your business. Now, when we talk about deploying apps, even simple ones can benefit greatly from ALM practices. As these apps evolve and become more complex, having a solid ALM process helps you manage changes smoothly and reduces the risk of errors. One key benefit of ALM is automation. It automates testing and deployment pipelines, which means errors can be caught early in the process before they reach your users. This automation saves time and improves the quality of your deployments. Another crucial aspect is source control management. ALM tracks every change made during development, whether it's code, connectors, or environment variables. This way, you always have a clear history and can easily roll back if needed. Overall, ALM is about bringing order and discipline to your Power Apps projects, ensuring they are reliable and ready to support your business needs as they grow. It's an essential practice for turning simple apps into powerful, scalable solutions. Let's take a closer look at some important statistics on deployment failures. These numbers really highlight why adopting Application Lifecycle Management, or ALM, is so crucial for reliable Power Apps deployments. First, the importance of ALM adoption cannot be overstated. These figures show that when organizations embrace ALM practices, they significantly reduce risks and improve the overall reliability of their deployments. Now, one of the key points here is that the primary cause of downtime is not actually code bugs, but process errors. In fact, most downtime incidents are due to issues in the deployment process itself, which means there's a lot of room for improvement through better process management. Another critical insight is about environments that don't have source control. Rework in these environments can be nearly double compared to those that do have source control. This translates into more time spent fixing issues after deployment and more firefighting, which can be avoided with proper source control practices. And speaking of deployment methods, manual deployments tend to have a much higher error rate, almost 3 times higher, compared to automated ALM processes. This underscores the importance of automation in minimizing mistakes and ensuring smoother releases. Overall, these statistics emphasize that investing in proper ALM strategies isn't just a best practice. It's essential for reducing downtime, cutting rework, and ensuring more reliable Power Apps deployments. Managing technical debt in Power Apps really comes down to having disciplined ALM practices. Without this discipline, apps can become hard to maintain and less resilient over time. It's crucial to understand that technical debt can turn once agile, flexible apps into fragile relics that teams are afraid to change. When technical debt accumulates, making updates becomes riskier and more complex, which only worsens the situation. This also impacts onboarding new team members and troubleshooting issues, making those processes slower and more frustrating. And let's not forget, all those repeated manual fixes and undocumented changes add up, contributing to even more technical debt. So, maintaining disciplined ALM practices isn't just about keeping things tidy. It's about ensuring your Power Apps remain reliable, adaptable, and easy to manage in the long run. Now, let's talk about why manual publishing often fails and the challenges that come with recovery. When something goes wrong, manual processes can lead to long recovery times, which frustrates users and makes it hard to restore stability quickly. There's also the risk of silent overwrites, where updates unknowingly overwrite each other, and missing dependencies, which can cause issues that are hard to trace. Another key point is the absence of an audit trail. Without a proper record of who made changes and when, troubleshooting becomes a guessing game. And finally, manual publishing typically lacks a rollback mechanism. That means if a bad update is published, there's no easy way to revert to a previous stable state, making the process risky and unreliable. All these challenges highlight why automating deployment with DevOps and ALM is so critical for ensuring reliable Power Apps deployments. Now, let's look at the difference between solution files and a real ALM approach. When we talk about solution files, they do help with basic tasks like exporting and importing components. However, relying solely on these exports and imports is quite limited. They don't provide a reliable or repeatable deployment process, which is essential for consistent results. Think of it this way. Solution files are like snapshots. They capture a moment in time but don't track the history of changes. This means you lose visibility into how your solution has evolved over time. Plus, solution files lack version control and merge capabilities, making it difficult to handle multiple updates or collaborate effectively. This approach also opens the door to errors. Missing dependencies or conflicting changes can easily cause issues during deployment. That's why a more robust, integrated approach is necessary, one that includes source control, automated builds, and testing. This is where a real ALM process comes into play. Instead of just exporting solutions, it treats deployments as part of a continuous, tracked, and controlled process, ensuring reliability and consistency every time. Let's take a closer look at some of the common problems we face with solution file management. These issues can really impact our ability to deploy Power Apps reliably using DevOps and ALM. First, one of the biggest challenges is manual merges. These can be incredibly time-consuming because you often have to guess what has changed between versions, which introduces errors and delays. Next, missing environment variables or connectors can cause silent failures. That means your solution might seem to deploy successfully, but it actually fails quietly because something essential was overlooked. And then there are version conflicts. When multiple developers are working on the same solution files at the same time, conflicts can occur if changes aren't properly coordinated. This can lead to broken automations and ultimately lost productivity. All of these issues underscore why effective solution file management is so crucial for smooth, reliable deployments and maintaining a productive development environment. Now, let's talk about some of the true benefits of ALM, specifically in source control and automation. One key advantage is having safe rollback options, which allow us to undo problematic updates quickly and efficiently. This is crucial for maintaining stability and minimizing downtime. Another important point is early bug detection. By integrating automated testing into our process, we can identify issues sooner rather than later, saving time and resources down the line. We also benefit from automated validation of dependencies and connections before deployment. This step helps ensure everything is in place and working correctly before we push changes live, reducing the risk of errors. Finally, tracking changes with accountability is essential. It provides precise records of every modification made, along with clear history and accountability. This transparency helps us understand what was changed, by whom, and why, which is vital for maintaining control over our deployments. All these aspects work together to ensure reliable Power Apps deployments with DevOps and ALM, making our processes more robust and trustworthy. Let's take a closer look at backup versus solution files. Think of a backup system as a true safety net. It actively tracks, stores, and restores exactly what's needed, precisely when it's needed. This means that if something goes wrong, you can rely on it to recover your work efficiently. Now, compare that to solution files. Imagine just tossing important documents into a shared folder and calling it a backup. That's similar to how solution files work. They don't reliably track changes or maintain a history of versions. This makes it difficult to restore a specific version if you need to roll back. Without proper tracking and version control, teams are left vulnerable whenever mistakes happen or unintended changes are made. That's where proper Application Lifecycle Management, or ALM, comes into play. It ensures a reliable, consistent, and safe way to manage your solutions throughout their lifecycle. So, in summary, having a solid backup system is critical for dependable Power Apps deployments, especially when combined with effective ALM practices. It's about safeguarding your work and ensuring smooth, reliable updates and restorations. Let's take a look at some real-world evidence supporting the benefits of ALM. These studies show that structured ALM practices can significantly improve the reliability of Power Apps deployments when combined with DevOps. What this means is that teams adopting these practices tend to experience fewer outages and can recover more quickly when issues do arise. It's all about consistency and resilience in your deployment process. Source control also plays a key role here. It enhances visibility and accountability across the team, making it easier to track changes and understand what's happening at any given time. Industry research and Microsoft guidance both emphasize this benefit. And then there's automation. Automated deployments are proven to reduce errors and rework, which means faster, more reliable releases. This aligns perfectly with our overall theme, leveraging best practices and tools to ensure smooth, dependable Power Platform implementations. Managing risk with versioning is a critical part of ensuring reliable Power Apps deployments, especially when using DevOps and ALM. Without proper versioning, every update becomes a bit of a gamble, and that risk can really jeopardize business operations. It's essential to have a strategy that allows us to safely evolve our apps as they grow in complexity and importance. When we implement version control, we can undo problematic changes without guesswork, which is a huge relief. Imagine being able to roll back to a previous stable version if something goes wrong, saving time and avoiding disruptions. It also helps us understand exactly what changed, when it happened, and who made those changes. That level of transparency and control empowers our teams to work more confidently and collaboratively. Overall, integrating versioning into our Power Apps development process is about making our deployments more reliable, safer, and more manageable. Now, let's talk about ensuring reliable Power Apps deployments through DevOps and ALM. One of the key strategies is implementing effective release management. This means setting up approvals and scheduled deployments to make sure everything goes smoothly and on time. It helps us control the release process and reduces the risk of errors. Next, we use automated build pipelines. These are essential because they continuously validate and test any changes we make. Automating these steps ensures consistency and catches issues early before they reach production. Another critical aspect is storing all components, whether it's code, connectors, flows, or variables, in source control. This way, everything is versioned, traceable, and easily recoverable, which is fundamental for maintaining a robust development lifecycle. Finally, it's important to treat our apps as evolving digital assets rather than static forms. This mindset encourages continuous improvement and adaptation, aligning with the overall goal of building a sustainable Power Platform DevOps strategy that supports ongoing innovation and reliability. Let's walk through the environment strategy we use with the DevTest prod model. First, the production environment is used for live users and business data. Its main goal is to prevent any untested changes from impacting those users, ensuring stability and reliability. Next, the test environment serves as a space for building and initial testing. Here, developers can create and debug applications using realistic data and scenarios, which helps us validate that everything works as expected before moving to production. Finally, the development environment is where everything begins. It's used for building the application and performing early testing. This environment provides developers with a dedicated space to create and refine their work. Overall, this layered approach helps us maintain control, quality, and reliability throughout the deployment process, aligning perfectly with our focus on reliable Power Apps deployments using DevOps and ALM. Let's talk about how automated testing plays a crucial role in ensuring reliable Power Apps deployments through DevOps and ALM. When we implement proactive testing, we're essentially catching potential errors early on, before the app even reaches users. This proactive approach helps us reduce surprises and minimizes downtime, keeping our applications running smoothly. One key aspect is validating that updated connectors are pulling accurate data. Ensuring data accuracy is vital because incorrect data can lead to faulty decision-making or user frustration. By continuously validating these connectors, we make sure that the data displayed or processed is correct. Another important point is end-to-end process verification. We need to check that when someone presses a button, the entire process it triggers works seamlessly from start to finish. This avoids any broken workflows or unexpected errors during real use. Finally, automated tests can simulate real user flows and verify that the business logic behaves as expected. This means we can confidently deploy updates, knowing that the app functions correctly across various scenarios, ultimately improving user experience and trust in the system. All these testing strategies together help us build more reliable, robust Power Apps that meet our users' needs without unexpected issues. In this case study, we're looking at a finance company that's achieved really smooth deployments using DevOps and ALM best practices. One of the biggest wins they experienced was that users could enjoy seamless updates without any disruptions or emergency calls. This highlights how reliable deployment processes directly contribute to a better user experience. They also managed quick rollbacks and fixes, which meant if any issues did arise, they could be addressed swiftly without impacting users. This agility is crucial in maintaining trust and minimizing downtime. Another key point is their use of automated testing. These tests caught integration issues early, before the app even reached production. That's a powerful way to prevent problems from escalating and to ensure quality from the start. Finally, they rolled out the app across 6 different departments, but they did so in a scheduled and coordinated manner. This kind of phased deployment helps in managing risk and making sure each department's transition is smooth. Overall, this example really underscores how disciplined DevOps and ALM practices lead to reliable, efficient, and user-friendly deployments, something we all aim for in our own projects. Now, let's talk about ensuring reliable Power Apps deployments using DevOps and ALM. One of the best practices is scheduling deployments thoughtfully. By planning ahead, we can avoid last-minute rushes, giving our teams enough time to prepare, thoroughly test, and communicate any changes well in advance. This proactive approach helps prevent unexpected issues and keeps everything running smoothly. Another key aspect is implementing approval workflows and playbooks. These formalize the deployment process, ensuring that every release is reviewed and authorized before going live. It creates a structured, repeatable process that adds a layer of control and accountability, which is crucial for high-quality deployments. Using managed solutions is also vital. They allow us to package and deploy changes in a consistent way. This consistency helps us maintain control over what moves between environments, reducing errors and making the deployment process more predictable. All of these practices, scheduling, approval workflows, and managed solutions, are part of a structured process for risk reduction. Effective release management in Power Platform depends on having these clear, organized steps that help us minimize risks and boost reliability across our deployments. Now, let's talk about some common pitfalls that can really hinder our Power Platform teams when it comes to Application Lifecycle Management. One major issue is poor documentation. When documentation is lacking or unclear, it often leads to confusion and wasted time troubleshooting. Recognizing this trap early is vital because it helps us build a more resilient DevOps culture. Another critical point is neglecting rollback plans. Without a solid rollback strategy, teams can find themselves stranded when an update fails, which can cause significant disruptions. Relying on manual deployments is also risky because it tends to increase errors and downtime, making our release process less reliable. We also see teams ignoring their environment strategy. Testing directly in production without proper planning introduces serious risks, including potential data loss or system outages. And finally, many teams skip source control altogether. This not only leads to lost changes, but also removes the ability to audit what was modified and when, which is essential for maintaining stability and accountability. These are the top 5 ALM traps we want to avoid to ensure more reliable and efficient Power Apps deployments. Recognizing and addressing these issues early helps us stay on track and improve our overall DevOps practices. Let's talk about Trap 1, skipping source control. Ensuring reliable Power Apps deployments really hinges on adopting a solid version control system like Git. Why is this so important? Well, it provides transparency, so everyone knows what changes are made and when, and it allows us to roll back to previous versions if something goes wrong. Without source control, developing Power Apps becomes a bit of a guessing game. You're trying to track changes and troubleshoot issues without a clear history. This can seriously threaten the stability of your apps and slow down your progress. When errors crop up, teams end up spending more time unraveling what went wrong, often left guessing about the root cause. Plus, without version comparison or merge capabilities, it's easy to lose fixes or create conflicting updates, leading to wasted effort and inconsistencies. And perhaps most critically, neglecting source control means changes can overwrite each other without any record, making it impossible to see who changed what and when. This lack of history not only hampers troubleshooting, but also risks losing valuable work. In essence, skipping source control is a critical mistake that can undermine your entire deployment process. It's a fundamental step toward reliable, manageable Power Apps development with DevOps and ALM. Let's talk about Trap 2, ignoring environment strategy. A solid environment strategy is essential to protect live data and ensure a smooth user experience. It helps us contain risks within controlled stages, so issues don't spill over into production. Having a well-defined environment strategy brings clear benefits. For example, I recently heard of a transportation company that faced a connector update failure. Because they didn't have proper testing environments, the failure halted bookings in the middle of the day. That's a real-world example of what can happen when updates aren't properly vetted. Unvetted updates are risky because they might break critical workflows. When that happens, operational failures become much more likely. It's like trying to fix one part of the system without understanding how it impacts the rest, dangerous and unpredictable. Mixing environments, meaning testing, staging, and production all in one, makes it really hard to isolate what's causing a problem. Diagnosing issues then becomes a huge challenge, wasting time and increasing downtime. And testing directly in production might seem quick, but it's risky. It can lead to unexpected outages, disrupting users and damaging trust. That's why a clear environment strategy isn't just best practice. It's essential for reliable, safe deployments and to keep your operations running smoothly. Now, let's talk about Trap 3, manual deployments. One of the biggest challenges with manual deployments is that they often create a false sense of control. It feels like you're managing everything carefully, but in reality, this approach can lead to cascading errors and lost productivity. When you rely on manual steps, you might think everything is fine until something goes wrong, which can be frustrating and time-consuming to troubleshoot. Unpredictable app behavior is another major issue. Manual deployments can cause apps to behave unexpectedly, leading to increased downtime and user frustration. This unpredictability makes it harder to maintain a smooth user experience and can damage user trust. Additionally, troubleshooting becomes more complex and lengthy because you need to identify what broke and why. Manual processes often lack clear audit trails, making it difficult to pinpoint issues quickly. Finally, relying on manual methods like copying solution files or importing zips can cause silent failures. For example, dependencies might be missed or components overwritten without anyone noticing immediately, which only compounds the problem. The key takeaway here is that automating deployment pipelines and enforcing managed solutions significantly reduce these risks. They help improve reliability, streamline troubleshooting, and ultimately deliver a more stable Power Apps experience. This aligns perfectly with our overall goal of implementing DevOps and ALM practices for better app management.